See where it says like pet caravan and all that. It's like okay, not really get the stroller, okay? Finish
money from here. You know that.
Foundation to help the region. It can be next doors, it can be opposite, it can be even same street where he has his coffee shop, it's the Grasshopper. It says on the first floor it has his cafe, on the second floor it has a restaurant, and in the basement it has the coffee shop.
And the reason why this is possible because they are essentially three different companies, three different limited companies.
In the same building.
Yeah, so three different licenses on three different companies, although those three companies might be owned by the same guy or the same lady, I don't know.
They're very rich grasshopper.
Yes.
Well, now, back on the thing of smoking, the tobacco smoking in bars and restaurants is going to be banned this
1st of July this year.
Yeah.
But what I have read is they're going to continue to permit cannabis smoking in the coffee shops.
Yeah, because otherwise you have no policy where you can smoke it at all. Then the only possibility should be the hotel room or at home, and that's what we don't want.
And the problem is, of course, smoking cannabis is illegal by law, so you cannot put a ban on smoking cannabis in a public place because it's already illegal. In other words, to ban the smoking of cannabis, which is just as harmful to the staff as smoking tobacco is, you would first have to legalize cannabis on a European scale in order for you to put cannabis in the same anti-tobacco laws that we are going to introduce on the 1st of July. So this is very important because, for instance, on the 1st of July, someone walks in here, policeman or an inspector, and he sees someone sitting smoking something that looks like a cigarette or a joint. If that joint contains tobacco, then there's a problem. But if it only contains marijuana, then there's a problem as well. The inspector will not be allowed to hand in the evidence to the forensic people because they already said no way that we're going to check on. So we will see in the first few months or first few years, we will see, as I estimated, a very hesitant police force or whatever. Because we're going to have to live with this new good law that hopefully bans tobacco from society within another 2 generations. And I mean this.
I think as a policeman, I can also say, controlling the smoking policy, we have a lot of other things to do. And if I should walk in and, official, I cannot do at anything. If persons in a restaurant, for instance, smoke, I only can say to the owner of the shop, you are now in violation. And then I don't have to prove what kind of stuff he is smoking. If I see a cigarette, it can also be a joint. I don't have to prove if there is tobacco in or not. So he has a problem because he doesn't obey the rules. And the person in question, the only thing he can do is put you out if you don't obey the rules or tolerance it, but then he has the problem. So I think it will be not a police matter, but more a matter of ownership. Other customers who be here and have spoke to persons who are smoking and that kind of reason. So I think it will be
that's why we decided not to fine the consumer, but the proprietor.
Well, you can sometimes, you can tell, if somebody is sitting there, opens up a pack of cigarettes and pulls one out of the pack and lights it up. It's pretty obvious what he has. But otherwise, if it's a hand rolled joint like that, you couldn't tell whether or not it is one or the other or both.
I don't know what should be in the law. If it's really is in the law that there should be tobacco in it, and what is the definition of tobacco?
Flink heeft nog niet helemaal besloten.
It can also be soft drugs because tobacco, it's something you smoke. Even if you smoke real grass or horse shit, it's smoking that is forbidden and not what thing you are smoking, I think.
Are there a lot of
changing the law still?
native Amsterdam people that smoke, or is it a small?
The Europeans on the whole, they smoke their marijuana with tobacco.
But are there a lot of tobacco smokers?
About 25% of the adult population still smokes, and that is down from 75% when I was born.
Well,
So,
still
it's
the
a good
percentage
thing.
is lowering.
And of course, smoking is very bad for your health,
Well,
whether it's cannabis or tobacco. I know.
Well, there's lots of things that are bad for you.
There
Sugar's
we go.
bad for you.
Yeah. Crossing the street is extremely dangerous.
Overeating flour products.
Crossing
are
some
bad for
crossings,
you.
very
That's what
dangerous.
I'm I'd
I
say.
don't need food.
Well, that's scary.
But I just see these things.
But what the
leaking
main
out.
reason is if people are not smoking, we should prevent them, because if you cross a crossing on a wrong way, it's your own decision. But if you smoke in a public place, also people who are not smoking around you can breathe the same smoke. And if they don't like it, there's no law at this point who says it's forbidden. So there's no protection of the guys who don't want to smoke. And that's the reason.
So no smoking outside either.
Yes. Outside in the open area, you can smoke.
There are places in the United States where they're willing to ban that because it's the thought that counts.
Have you ever spoken with an American policeman about their
I have spoken to
marijuana
several.
policy?
We have several policemen who visit our precinct as well.
Yeah.
And that's the reason I also heard about some rules in America. And I still, it's very strange to explain what our rules are, because still it's forbidden. Also, the selling of marijuana in the Dutch law, it's still forbidden. And we have a policy of tolerance, and that's only at the front door. And
But the tolerance policy is working, is it not?
it's working, and still, when you don't obey the rules who are in the tolerance of policy, we can act like a normal policeman, and then you violating the law. For instance, if you sell people in the coffee shop too much, you don't obey the rules, and then still the normal law is going around, and you can arrest it.
Now, is it true Dutch residents can have plants in their
Yeah.
home?
No.
No, it's not true.
But
It's also tolerated.
it's
It's
tolerated.
official. It's
Free
still
plants or
yeah.
something?
What is the tolerance?
I said to some guy, if you really want to have a real plant, go to an old home where people are resting. Every old citizen over there can have 3 plants. If you have an old homes residence where 600 people work, you can have 1,800 plants over there. The only problem is you should put them on every room. And but then you can have a lot of stuff
That's
over there.
wonderful. That's wonderful.
It's not quite like that. You can have a couple of plants without getting into trouble with the DA's office.
Which for me as an American, I don't smoke that much marijuana. 1 or 2 hits. I'm good for the day. But for me, what feels good is to be able to have a little joint in my cigarette box and know that I won't be persecuted for it.
Possession.
Where in
paraphernalia.
America I live in fear, and I know I would spend a great amount of money and time in jail just for that, when I'm a good citizen.
Even a seed.
Here is the rule: if you have less than 30 grams, you will have a prosecuted.
Okay.
And in the coffee shops, you can buy at least 5 grams.
Right.
If you buy more, then you have a problem.
But
And also the
that's how, as Americans, that's what we have to deal with.
There were more people arrested last year in the United States for marijuana possession than there are in all of Amsterdam. Over 800,000 Americans were arrested.
Nonviolent crimes.
Wasn't the number of marijuana offenses greater than all rapes, murders,
And that's what, and this is what they're doing to good people that are caught with small amounts,
And I
they're
think
putting
what
them
you
in
now
prison
said
for
is the
5
main
years.
reason why we have the policy at this point. Because we are with only less policemen than in America, and we have a lot of things to do, and we still get more to do, and it's a bit stupidity as policemen to get an arrest for somebody who has just a little bit of marijuana with them, while other people have also hard drugs with them, or have weapons with them, or have a big violation of crime. It's too much work if we should do that. And our community in totally says, okay, smoking marijuana, it's not proved it is not okay for your body. Of course, smoking in totally should harm you, but there's no proof that you can addict it to soft drugs. It's no proof that it should be bad for you. Even some doctors describe it as a medicine if you have, for instance, pain. So it's a little bit strange policy that the American people, of all kind of people, who pretend to be very tolerated and the salvation of the world, have this kind of sometimes they say that, but it's a little bit strange. And yeah, I think it should be better, but then I of course not talk as a policeman, but as a private person. We even should rule the backdoor policy. It should be much better if we have the supply side also ruled, because there are a lot of Dutch farmers who can let grow on a very good specific base their plants. It can be controlled, they can pay taxes and all kind of things, and even the coffee shop owner can buy it on a normal base, like you buy a real coffee, for instance.
And I would have an invoice. I would have an invoice because now my bookkeeping lacks invoices. Hence, it is not a bookkeeping. And that gives constant discussion with the IRS. I do not have invoices. And I cannot produce them.
No, because there's no criminal who gives him an invoice and he buys, for instance, a lot of stuff.
There were people about maybe 10 years ago who did wanted to give invoices, but they were immediately prosecuted.
Yeah, because the backdoor is still,
Let me ask you a question about, I read recently that there was some police group here that was calling for an end to the toleration of the 3 or 5 plant, whatever it is, in the home growing. Because they said, well, somebody, obviously if you got 5 really big plants, you could get a few thousand euros off of them over a period of time, which for some reason they thought was a bad idea. Is there a split in the Dutch police over drugs policy?
No, I think the most policemen want to also have a very good rule at the backdoor side. So it means if you have your own growing at home, nobody cares. The rules entering a home in Holland are very strict. When we go into people's home, we should have a license. We should have a permit to go there, and we don't get it if we think there are just a few plants. It's a little bit different if we think there is a real plantage. If you have more than 50, 100, 200 plants, because if you have that in a normal home, it can also be dangerous for the people around you. Sometimes they get the electricity illegal, there is a lot of lamps, too much heat, it can be very dangerous for fire and that kind of things, and that's the reason we should do something about it. And it's a little bit strange because we had also some coffee shops who had a plantage on the first floor, and then it's very difficult to get it in contact with the owner of the coffee shop.
It is interesting to state that in the United States you always need a warrant to enter someone's private quarters. In Holland that is not the case. Within the opium laws of our country, which is the Illegal Substance Act, they give far-reaching possibilities for the police to enter your home without a warrant.
Well, in the States,
in a way, it is safer to grow marijuana in the United States in your own home than it is in Holland. And this may sound crazy, but in a judicial framework, it is.
Well, I hate to tell you that. But the thing about it is, in the
we're
States,
losing a lot of rights.
They get a warrant very easily.
Yes, they get a warrant very easily,
of course,
and
because they're up for election or whatever.
And then they say,
which is not the case here. They are appointed.
But we have also very strict rules. If we, for instance, find somebody suspect of obeying not the laws of opium, we should have very clear written down what our suspects are. I cannot just point somebody I suspect, I should be a lot of official doubt that he is really suspect. I must see something, I must hear something, maybe I have others smell something, and then only the laws are obeying my act to search somebody.
I don't think we have that right anymore in America.
On paper.
I'm serious.
Paper, yeah.
Paper.
Well, in all those TV series,
Michael,
you do. Yeah.
do you ever see, Dave, that cannabis will be legal here?
Yeah.
Oh, I have very good news. Yes, it will be legalized, not only here but throughout the Western world to start with. Because we're never going back to the situation
Before. No.
where we're going to prosecute the consumer. And in fact, if you look at it objectively, the cannabis consumer is in no danger anywhere in the Western world. Of course, possession is a problem in the United States, as it is in Greece. But the mere fact that you are allowed by law to consume the drug of your choice, whether it's marijuana or cocaine, that in itself is not forbidden, and that is a good thing. And if we look at the situation in Europe, that has dramatically improved over the last 15 years. Why? Because they've looked at the Kingdom of the Netherlands and they saw the results of our policy, and they've been copying it ever since. Of course, not on a media scale.
Right.
And you might argue there are no coffee shops in Germany, but I can tell you one thing: there are more outlets where you can more or less openly buy cannabis, where the local coppers close an eye. Of course, all over Europe.
Yeah.
The Czech Republic is a nice example. Spain is
there a lot
probably-
of pressure? You sound like you would know about all the different countries. Is there still this ridiculous pressure coming from the U.S. government for you to not?
I don't agree that there's but I might disagree on quite a few points, because a lot of Americans have an idea about their country and they take it to Europe, and then they confront us with their idea of how we look upon the United States. And I can tell you one thing: it's quite different from what you might think.
No doubt. Probably, yes.
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 Was there pressure from United Nations?
Well, the UN tries, but what I'd like to hear discussed with having the two of you here is that the government, in the current government in the Netherlands, has some parties in the coalition that are prohibitionists. There is this push to reduce the number of coffee shops, and so obviously there is a lot going on in terms of moving in what the prohibitionists consider the right direction, and which we consider the wrong direction. And what I would like to hear is a discussion of the dynamics, which are very different in this country, between the police and the politicians. Because in the U.S., it's the police who run everything. The police will say, Michael, the example of this is that there will be a medical marijuana bill proposed in a state, and people will write their politician about it, and he will write back and he says that would be inconvenient for the police. The police tell us that would cause problems for them. And the United States is basically run on the basis of not causing problems for the police, meaning for the narcs. It doesn't matter what the rest of the police think, but it's actually the response to that. In letters from politicians to their constituents, I'm not going to do that because the police tell me it would be inconvenient for them. So the dynamics of what you're saying are so totally different from what one normally hears from an American policeman. That it is, this is fascinating, and then you have the politicians pushing.
But there are also some politicians try to change it, because we have now a very system, and it says that there should be a new rule, and the rule should be that there should not be a coffee shop in 500 meters nearer of a school, for instance. And that's what the government tries to get through. But if we should do that for Amsterdam, that should mean that we lose 93% of our coffee shops.
And that's why I'm totally in favor of this new policy.
Because you're by one of them.
And the most and it's a little bit strange, because I think they try to influence the marijuana selling with very young people. But for big cities like Amsterdam, like Rotterdam, it's not possible, because then a lot of owners of coffee shops should close down their shops. And still we had a lot of consumers of marijuana, and where you should buy them. Then you get a big shop in maybe the near of Rambla Square who sells a lot, and it's not what we will, because then you get a lot of tourists coming for Amsterdam and only get to that part of Amsterdam. Well, now you can go on the whole part of Amsterdam and you don't have any trouble with big groups on the street.
And then it'll be even easier for the government to prove that the sale of cannabis or the use of cannabis causes public nuisance.
Because everybody can jam into
Everybody, that's how politics work.
Yeah.
Or something. Yeah.
And of course, politics is always on priorities. And first and foremost priority of any politician is his re-election, even here in this country. We have in Holland a little over 450 municipalities. 101 actually have a coffee shop. So there are 350 towns, cities, villages that do not have a coffee shop. And it is understandable that ruling political parties are very much concerned about their votes in those 350 communities that do not have a coffee shop.
It goes so far. In Amsterdam we have several sub-communities, and in the southern part of Amsterdam there was no coffee shop. And it was a wish of the community over there that there should be a coffee shop. Because now all the people living in the southern part of Amsterdam, it was Amsterdam Southoost, should come to Amsterdam, and they also had a lot of traveling, a lot of problems on the street. So for the community it was very sensible that they have a coffee shop in their own neighborhood. And there was no owner who do that, because it's not the nicest part of Amsterdam. And now still they have getting from the community a place, get subsidized about it, to start a coffee shop over there. So it's even promoted by the community that there should be a coffee shop in that area. That's the other hand.
Now this makes perfect sense to an American.
Yeah.
80% statistics, give or take. 80% of Americans do want marijuana to be legal. 80%.
And then I think it's a lot of strange.
Our government
that it's still not
continues to
possible.
label it.
You want to ask him?
as
Yes, question. Do you know anything about, I read on the internet how some Dutch police officers, or there was supposed to be a law that would ban Dutch police from smoking after class.
Oh yeah.
We get a letter from our chief that it says it's not allowed to use hard drugs. I think that's quite normal. But it says also it's not wishful that we smoke soft drugs. And it's even said it's not wishful if we drink too much. Yeah, I think it's a little bit strange, because of course when I have a normal job, I can do everything I like. Now when you are with the police, I still think you can do the same. And of course I shouldn't be drunk when I go to work. I shouldn't be drunk in the place where I work, because people always will point to your policeman, you should behave. And it's also the same when I smoke marijuana or that kind of things. I think it's not wishful if you do it on public while people know you are with the police. But of course it's very strange that you cannot do that. And that's where there was a lot of people saying no against the letter and still do what they want to do.
Are you subject to urine testing?
I self don't smoke, so I cannot say what people will do, but I know for a lot of young people, and if they were smoking hash or marijuana, they will still do it. Also, if they were still policemen and having the letter from our chief.
No, I mean, are the police subject to urine testing? I mean, could you go when you go to work one day? Could they say you got to pee in a cup because we're
Oh, no.
See that's in the United States, everybody has to pee in a cup.
That's what they do in the United States.
If you're going to get jobs, this sort of thing.
I must say, if they think we do things who are not okay, we have a special force in the police who can investigate you. And if you're not obeying the rules, and it can be very strict, that you can be fired. So, but it's not a rule that you stay you shift and you should be in a car.
What is now in The Hague in the current government? Is Here's building the Justice Minister?
Yes.
Okay. Again.
He had to step down 15 years ago because of the Well, let's drop that subject.
Yes.
But anyway,
A very
he's our
strange
new.
scandal. But this is, I mean, this guy is a prohibitionist. Is that correct?
No,
He's not-
I object to the term prohibitionist
Okay.
That's
in
what it's
general
called,
in Holland, because as you know, in Holland, different from the United States or Germany or France or England, we always have a coalition government made up of different parties. There's always what you would say a leftish part and a conservative part. In other words, for the electorate, as a politician, I'm allowed to say anything. Like there are a couple of politicians who, in the last few years, they said something that was simply not done in Holland. They made a plea for capital punishment. That is allowed. If you want to draw votes, you can say whatever you want, as far as I'm concerned. But when it comes down to the nitty-gritty, actually designing new policies, new laws, then you'll see in this country that the prohibitionists are not prohibitionists, nor are the legalizers. It just stays in the middle. And
well,
we try to.
that's how it
and
should be.
Most important thing is that we can solve our existing problems in our own way without getting into trouble with European law or United Nations treaties. And that's what we're carefully trying to balance. And we've been doing it for over 30 years. There's another thing I have to point out. In Dutch law, it is possible, and this is very different from many other Western democracies. The DA's office can subpoena a case. He's not forced to bring it into court. It's called the opportunist principle. And because we have that in our law, it was possible in 1976 to take marijuana out of the Illegal Substance Act or create a special place within the Illegal Substance Act for marijuana, instructing the government and its enforcers not to give a priority to the cannabis rules. And that sort of has evolved in what you consider to be a free society where the cannabis smoker is not prosecuted or he does not get into trouble in any way. Unless, of course, and this is also interesting, if you misbehave, then the 5 grams in your pocket will be enforced as if you're in the United States. So, in fact, we're talking about behavior.
Right. Which I understand and
it's
agree
also
with.
what we tell tourists,
Has to
because
be taught.
we have, of course, a very strict policy, but some tourists came to the Amsterdam part and think everything is possible. And that's also the problem what a lot of coffee shops have, because a lot of tourists came into the coffee shop and can I buy a gram of coke? They think it's possible, that it's also legal. And when you came from tourist views and came to the central station and walked to the Dam Square, I think you are offered at least 30 times if you want to buy coke, if you want to buy ecstasy, if you want to buy hash marijuana, to every Negro person on the street.
Yeah, coke, hashish, ecstasy.
Yeah, Charlie. Now, of course, it's a very big problem. And what those people sell are most of the time phony drugs. They even sell vitamin pills for ecstasy. They sell baking powder as heroin. They sell even dry horse shit as real marijuana or hashish. And they talk to you, hey man, you want to buy some real shit? And you even don't cry about it, because you buy real shit. And because it's not real, we cannot do anything about it in case of the laws of the opium. It's forbidden in our normal laws.
So how do we change their behavior?
But talking to people, trying to sell on dope things, it's still forbidden, but it gets only a fine of 150 euros.
It is time for me as a coffee shop owner for over 20 years to make a compliment now. That street dealing, obnoxious behavior has almost disappeared, except for a small part of Amsterdam, the red light district. I am on the other side of the Damrak, the main street that leads from the central station to Dam Square. On my side of the Damrak, that used to be invested with street dealers and whatever. It is virtually gone. The question that a lonely tourist did put to me maybe 20 or 15 years ago, where can I get cocaine? That question is never put anymore in the coffee shop at all. That means that the 99% of the tourists that come to Amsterdam have read their travel guide and they know exactly what to do, what is available, and that in itself is a great success. Albeit there are some nutcases that
Most English, I must say.
but then again, we also live in a society nowadays where every incident, no matter how small it is, there are 5 cameras on it. There's a spokesperson for every department you can imagine. So we do enlarge incidents as if it's a trend, and that and I object to that kind of media attention.
Which reminds me of something that got a lot of the media attention here, and that is the mushroom thing. The mushroom ban.
That's a nice example of what I was...
What now? We know the background on it. Some mentally unstable young French woman died very tragically jumping into a canal because she had had a mushroom. After mushroom, therefore because of mushroom. I understand that they passed the ban, but it has not gone into effect yet. Or what is the deal?
There is a rule. I think there is voorstel. There is a proposal that it says, okay, we should have a waiting period. And the mayor would ask, okay, if you want to buy mushrooms, okay, you go to the mushroom shop, I want to buy some mushrooms, and if you are a foreigner or tourist, you should get a waiting period of 3 days, and after 3 days you can buy. I think it's not sensible. What I think is sensible is that you should get very good information about what the mushrooms are doing. Because as a policeman, I have a lot of problem with guys who use too much mushrooms. Because
in combination
with alcohol, in combination with other drugs, but also only mushrooms. Because what a lot of people think is that the effect should be very quickly.
Are they all foreigners?
And the effect of mushrooms it's taking a longer period. So what I see by a lot of people is they take a mushroom, don't feel anything within 5 minutes, they take another mushrooms, nothing within 10 minutes, take another one, and they eat a whole bucket of it. And the behavior can be a little changed. I must say, at least 2 times a week, we have a call that there is somebody probably use mushrooms who is smashing the windows, trying to get out of the window. So that is a big problem. And it's not the people who are using mushrooms, because I think in most cases people use mushrooms on the way it should be. But still, a lot of tourists don't know exactly what they buy, what the effects are, and I refer to the crazy Englishmen we have. And at this moment, in the center part, I think in the weekend days, 40-45% of the guys are English. And it's a real paradise for them, because we have cheap women, we have cheap cigarettes, and you can buy everything you want. And that's what a lot of guys coming here think. And that's also the reason why a lot of net dopers try and sell all kind of stuff to that kind of group. But I think the problem is not the mushroom seller itself, but giving real good information. And of course then it's on your own if you should obey the information. And I think a lot of guys who want to buy are not real mushroom users, but want to try everything once. And they don't have any patience, and then you get this kind of problems. And it's the same, I think, with marijuana. I have people who never smell marijuana, came to Amsterdam and, okay, this is Amsterdam, I should have to smoke at least 1 joint. And even I had people of 40, 50 years old, and they tried 1 joint and they fell down. But that's also, some people don't think about what they are doing, but just try to explain everything and try everything. And
my first advice
sounds like George Bush.
My first advice on anyone visiting our beautiful city and intending to take any kind of drug, I mean, in principle, it's not up to me. Make sure you have a healthy, good breakfast.
Yes.
Because in the over 20 years, my statistics tell me, why do people turn bad or get sick? Because they come off the plane, they are of course tired from the journey, They forget to have a healthy meal or a good meal. They start drinking alcohol on the plane over here. And that's when the problem starts.
In terms of police calls,
Big guys, healthy guys, small women, unhealthy people, it doesn't matter.
Everybody fell down.
They fell down without a proper meal in their belly.
Gravity works.
But of course, one of the joys of going on a vacation is to make a complete ass of yourself. That's part of the fun.
And that still are those English guys, eh?
Yeah.
And they are a little bit stupid as well, because I can tell a story. We have our sellers on the street, and there was so much on New Year's Eve. There were, I think, at least in the red light there, maybe 200 guys trying to sell something. And they made so much profit. I got one at the end. And normally they sell bowls for Coke with a lot of powder in it. And this guy was out of his powder, and he just sold the small plastic bowls. He just pulled the bowl together. It looks like it was powder inside it, and you bought for 25 euros only a little bit plastic. There was even no powder in it. And still, if people buy this kind of stuff on the street, it still exists there, because I even walk as a civilian policeman, and there were guys coming to me English, hey, we can buy Coke here. It's a little bit strange. And of course, when you read your guides, nobody will do that. But still, people coming here, and yeah, that's where we have in the red light area the most problems with, and think that everything is possible.
As long as people want it, and
gonna get it.
as long as there are guidelines, then it should work.
And we even, I must say, I'm not for it, but we even changed our policy against hard drugs. Because we have still a lot of addicted people, and we chase them and we arrest them. But even if you have less than, for instance, 3 bowls, less than a gram with you, it's also not going to the court. You can have that. Because it's not possible to get every case in. I can tell you, even by big dancing theaters like Escape, you should be checked. They have a policy inside. If you have more than a lot of pills with them, for instance ecstasy, then they only call the police. And if you have only 3 pills with you, you can enter. And then you talk about hard drugs. And
So we have in this country also a consumer quantity allowance for the consumer when it comes down to hard drugs. For instance, you can have half a gram of cocaine in your pocket. If you have more than half a gram of cocaine in your pocket, you're being viewed upon as a dealer, and then you get the full force of the law in your neck. But if you stay below certain quantities, 3 pills, I believe it's for ecstasy, half a gram for cocaine, then in essence you're not in trouble. It's being seen as your personal quantity that you need for your own consumption. So that again is very humanitarian.
It is. It is.
Let me ask you something here in terms of duties as a policeman, in terms of the number of calls for police assistance because of problems. How often do you get calls to a coffee shop where you're having problems?
From the coffee shop, we don't get any calls, I think. We get calls of people who are falling down outside the coffee shop, and most of the time not the coffee shop owner is calling because he knows exactly what he should do, but people who are walking through calling the police, but they see somebody lying on the street and think it should be a sick person or something like it. And when we came, we should always be a little bit cautious, because some people can be really ill, especially if they have a disease or something, or use also some other drugs. But most of the time we get advice or give the advice, just drink some sugar water or other things, be quiet, make sure you are not alone, there's somebody with you to care for, and then go to your hotel, rest, and then it will be better with you.
The last time that I called the police to intervene in my premises, that was because I saw a guy who had a flick knife in his pocket. And although the flick knife in itself is not illegal, it is illegal in my place, but I was too scared to confront the guy because he looked quite crazy. Mind you, certainly not from smoking marijuana. But he just came in and he was that kind of guy. That's when I called for assistance. But of course, after confronting the customer from a distance that I had called the police, he was gone long before the police came. Which is not saying that the police took a long time to come. But that information in itself was enough. And that was over 2 years ago.
And how often do you get calls to problems at bars?
A lot more. And especially in the red light area, because we had a lot of groups. I think at least every day we had several calls because there are problems in bars with fighting people or that kind of things.
Back to one thing we were talking about earlier was the back door of the supply side. I've read that a group of city mayors, 20-some odd mayors, had petitioned the government to legalize the supply side, or quote unquote legalize in a sense, regulate like the front door. And I had heard that some cities were had gone on their own, sort of a wink-wink, nudge-nudge licensing system, but not Amsterdam. Or is that? Can you comment on that? Or do either of you know anything about that?
They wanted to, and they had a majority in the city council, but of course the national government, they had to tell them you can't do that.
No, but in Amsterdam.
Because just in case, this is not a federal country. There's one central government and there are municipalities, that's it.
And the mayor is appointed by the...
He's appointed by the Queen on a proposal from the city council. All officials that in the United States are elected are here appointed. We do not elect our mayor, we do not elect our DA's officer or our sheriff, whatever, or our principal at school.
City council, no city council members elected. There is no election.
No. We the population, we only elect city council and the House of Representatives. That's it.
The upper house here, how does that function?
That is elected out of out of it inner circle, so to speak. Ja, ik sta nu even de Provinciale Staten over, want het wordt ingewikkeld. So, in fact, in your country, there's a lot more democracy, if you get my point.
If it's good, I don't think so.
Sorry?
From what I was reading in my textbook, the Netherlands seems to be the only democracy that's working, or at least more of the population seems to trust the government and work with it.
Thanks for the compliment. That, of course, is rubbish. I think that most Western democracies function very well, and we should be proud that we have a long period of war on a small scale behind us, and with further integration on a European scale, but also on a United Nations scale, things are looking better every day, in spite of a few incidents here and there.
When do you think?
And of course, the idea is that we get the other countries into our. Yeah, it's the only system that relatively works. We've tried everything else.
Exactly.
Churchill said that democracy is the worst system except for all the rest.
Yes.
And yeah, I think Americans particularly, I mean, and currently the idea was, of course, we were going to establish democracy in Iraq. Wonderful idea, but
it has already been established, by the way. I mean, we tend to forget. It isn't functioning yet the way we like, but it has been established.
No, but what I'm saying is we have serious problems making democracy work in the United States. I mean, making democracy work is something that it takes constant work, and you touched on this a little bit, but the Dutch coalition system is this country has 16 million people. How many parties are there in Parliament?
9.
Big ones.
Small ones, bigger ones, 8. Small ones, bigger ones. But it's always a coalition government. And it's always been made up of Democrats and Republicans, so to speak.
Right now, the one party that in the Parliament, I'm a Christian, but the Christian Union Party gives me the creeps. Reading on their website that they call themselves the government is the sword of God, aka Allah, and I know that they are if there is anyone are they prohibitionists? I mean,
yes, and of course they want us to not to watch TV on Sunday, and that is their right to say so. It is our right to make sure that they will never get a majority in the House.
And that will never happen. Yeah.
But in itself, we need extremists to the right and to the left to keep the balance in any democracy. So you need people who say that homosexuals should be castrated. You need them to uphold the rights of homosexuals.
The idea
Simple.
is one of the first times I came to the Netherlands, I was that they were putting on some sort of conference or other. A friend of mine was organizing it, and they were really looking for a prohibitionist to be on the panel or on the group, so that they were. And my friend was laughing. He said, these poor people. I mean, they're totally deluded. So we got to get one of them, the sweet thing, on the panel, so that we'll have all of the views represented. And that's and of course, in a country where you have 16 million people and 8 or 9 parties in your parliament, it's here you have this group of people who obviously, have what is in the American context a very closely shared experience. But we have 2 parties, 3, 4 maybe, how generous you're counting different things.
Yeah, but 2 that count.
But 2 that really count, and and try to force everything into this either or A or B, and it's the group dynamics that make the Netherlands work are obviously radically different than is your constitution. Your national experience is very radically different from ours. But in terms of backing down to something specific, the supply side, you've got the mayors are in favor of it. It seems like a lot of the police are in favor of it, certainly in Amsterdam, and I assume in the other.
I think even that the government are in favor, but because they still act like a big Europe and always don't want to be in advance too much, because if we should legalize also the backdoor policy, then every other country in Europe and the world will point to Holland, and that's the reason why still we don't do it.
I think we have to wait for one of the larger countries in Europe, preferably Germany, to take a retail system like ours, under the same conditions as ours. Then there is enough political clout to discuss further progress in decriminalizing, legalizing marijuana. But a relatively small country like the Netherlands can only go as far as it goes, and I have to be a realist. I think we've gone as far as we can go at the moment. We see a lot of countries adopting our system, albeit not as openly as we do, so things are looking good. But to legalize the supply line to the coffee shops, that can only be possible if you legalize it first. And I can understand the wish. I have the same wish. I just pointed out I need invoices, but it's not going to happen. It's nice. It's sympathetic. It's certainly sympathetic to you guys, but it's not going to happen. Not yet.
The question again, is that I also read about crackdowns on growers, the penalties for growers is increasing and so on. So that one of the effects this has in other countries is that it ends up with organized crime or real criminals coming into the business, because the average person, this is very much what happened for a while in the United States, is that it really did. Of course, it's been a great boon to the Mexican mafia, but we suppress supply, and yet we have this more American smoke than Dutch. I mean, we have a higher rate of consumption by far than the Netherlands. So there is this. It seems to me, on the one side, everybody wants to legalize the supply side, but while they say we can't for political reasons, at the same time they're intensifying enforcement against the supply. Isn't that?
No.
Okay, that's not true.
No, we only intensive the problems of supplying gives a lot of problems on the street or in communities.
Fire hazards, for instance.
And
That's a big issue.
on the camps, for instance, we had a lot of marijuana plants, but there were also a lot of weapons in the camps.
These are Dutch trailer parks.
Yes.
I mean, this sounds like an American joke. Because Dutch trailer parks, we don't think about, but that's in the United States.
Yeah.
We know about trailer parks.
Now, okay.
Trailer parks in the Netherlands, ik vul je even aan, to make sure were and are to a certain extent lawless areas, if you know what I mean. There was a different set of law concerning the trailer camp, but a trailer camp in Holland is something very different from trailer camps in the United States, mind you.
There were, for instance, there were gypsies. There was to start with, but now it's a special group of people. And we saw that when the trailer camps are too big, there was a lot of problems inside. They don't pay taxes. They grow illegal hash. They had a lot of abuse. They had a lot of weapons inside, and it was not possible for normal civilians to go there. And that was not wishful. And we start in one big operation. And it is now possible in the Dutch law to point several places where we also can have special priorities to search it. But it was not only for having there a plant. There were much more problems that we took and do something about that kind of problem.
But the good news is that the quality marijuana that comes or came from the trailer camps was so low that it is not supplied in your regular quality coffee shop, I can assure you. Because the larger the plantations, the lower the quality is. And this horrendous price that you pay for the cannabis nowadays in the coffee shops can only be explained to small suppliers with a quality product. Boutique kind of things. And we also know, and these are government figures, that less than 40% of the consumed cannabis in Holland is actually purchased in a coffee shop. So 60% is somewhere out there.
Yeah, this fascinates me because I've heard that before.
It's a plea for more coffee shops.
Yeah, it sounds like it. But
and also it's a plea against closing coffee shops, because then you put it in the illegal circuit any time.
And we know from experience that in an illegal circuit there is, apart from the control, but it is, you'll see the emergence of different drugs as well. Mm-hmm. And the basis of the Dutch policy is to make a clear division between cannabis, we call it soft drugs, but there's only one drug, and the drugs with high risk, the hard drugs.
What now? This 50-60% of people who do not buy from coffee shops. Now, if I were a large consumer of cannabis, and I really did, smoke a lot, then, buying wholesale, quote unquote, makes more sense, because I can go to a coffee shop and I'm going to buy, at maximum I can buy it one time is 5 grams, which means that there's no incentive. I mean, if I could go into Michael's shop and say, Michael, I'm a heavy smoker or whatever, I need a couple of ounces, so give me a 20% discount or something like that. So you can't do that.
Up until 10 years ago, you could.
Yeah, and so
now I tell you, sorry, bugger off.
Yes. Don't be so rude.
No, you're trying to entice me
to break the law.
Lose my license.
Yes, exactly.
And I don't want to lose my license.
Exactly. So anyway, I want to buy wholesale.
You heard what he said now, because legalizing it for so much, forbidding selling large amounts.
Yeah.
He says now what is part of the policy. When you rule it on a big base, they have a license, they have a normal income, and they are very afraid to lose the license, so they won't commit other things who normally the policy don't want to have happen.
Look,
and that's what
and the real stupid guys, they've been weeded out of the long time ago. At least, I'm sure that you can confirm that.
Yeah.
And there's always a idiot left somewhere out in the field.
Well, I remember a few years ago, I think it was one of the satellite grasshoppers or something, where they got closed because they had some clerk who was selling coke under the counter. And obviously, I mean, they have a great deal of money. They're very involved in the cannabis world. Because the last thing they wanted was to have some idiot clerk.
This is also a problem with normal cafes.
Yes.
We even close cafes while people behind the bar sell coke, and that's a problem that every owner of the shops will have. And
But I have to be fair on the enforcer in this country. If it's a good establishment, but something goes wrong, for instance, there's information that someone is doing a crooked thing inside, the owner will always be informed beforehand, unless the suspicion is clearly on the owner itself. Then they will not inform, but they always give you the opportunity to amend things, to make things right again. There's a particular case of a highly esteemed colleague of mine, who was over 20 years at the Van Limburg-Stierenplein, which is, well, anyway, and he was informed beforehand. He didn't do anything about it. He spent, he didn't tend to his affairs, and then all of a sudden, the police had to act. They did, and that was it. He lost his license, and he was very pissed. But he was also extremely stupid. In my
You got the forewarning, sure.
You got a forewarning. Where do you get a forewarning from the police? Where? In a civil,
I think it's very
in a
important.
civil society.
We try to get it ruled, and we try to get it safe for everybody. And that's also the policy. If you should buy it in the illegal circuit, we see it now and selling the hard drugs. People who try to buy hard drugs, they should be searching for it, because real addicted people on hard drugs is brought by the dealers and not on the other way around. So if people talk to you, you want to buy some coke, it is always fake, because they are the men who try to make a lot of money of selling just plastic bowls. And that's also a problem that we have, because if you are at the low versions of people, if you cannot afford it, you always buy it on the street. But I think the most addicted people are staying in the wealthy community. If you, for instance, have in the parts of Hilversum around it, the people who make television, make radio, I think there are a lot of more use of hard drugs than here in the whole part of Amsterdam. And they can afford it. They know exactly the places where you can buy, and you can buy ounces. I'm sure of that. And that's no problem, because it's inside. Nobody sees it.
Hollywood is different from the rest.
Nobody has a problem with it. Well, the guy who is addicted for more than 20 years and is chased by the police and is staying on the street, and he should be 24 hours a day searching for his hard drugs. He is a problem on the street. And I say somebody, because you cannot smoke it on the street, but he has no home where he should smoke it. And I even say to some addicted people, who I'm sorry,